Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second in our short series of podcasts where we explore technology companies doing work with the federal government. In our last session, we spoke through some of the high level reasons a technology company may want to engage and transact with the federal government. So, check that out. My name is Craig Hunter. I'm an audit partner in our government contracting group here at Cherry Bekaert. And with me today is Joe Salgado, General Manager Capture from Red Team Consulting. And together, we're going to dig a little deeper into the topic of capturing federal business. So, welcome, Joe.
Thanks for having me, Greg.
Well, getting right to it. So, Joe, let's say I'm a technology company and I have products which may be of use or benefit to the federal government. How do I educate myself on what they are looking for and where do I go to do that?
Well, there's a lot of different ways, Craig, that I like to recommend to new entries into the federal government contracting space. And one thing that I'd like to say is, like to tell them is to look at as many articles as they possibly can about the agencies that they're interested in. There are a lot of very specific types of websites and journals that are geared towards the contracting community. So there's a lot of articles that come out about upcoming opportunities and things that they can be going after. That's one area where you can start to figure out, okay, what's going on here. Another is some subscription-based services like GovWin and a few others that compete with GovWin that have a lot of opportunities. They cull the information that is coming from publicly available sites to actually find the new opportunities that are coming out, and they will actually you can actually do very targeted searches by agency or by industry to find what you're looking for there. Those do cost some money, so there would be an annual subscription basis that would have to come into play. Additionally, there is publicly available sites that I just mentioned, such as sam.gov, which has a lot of information that comes um, the from the actual agencies, and you can actually find all new opportunities that are coming out there. And those would be what we like to call RFPs, which stands for Request for Proposals. And anybody coming into the federal marketplace, you're going to find a lot of acronyms in this space. So I'll try to explain it. If I use an acronym, Craig, please stop me and I'll explain what I'm saying. So the RFPs are posted out there. And what I like to say to anybody that's trying to learn about this marketplace is read as many of these RFPs as you can. Some of us at Red Team Consulting, we're nerds in the fact that we like to read the RFPs. We like to actually also read sometimes protest documents that are put out by the General Accounting GAO office, where sometimes there are challenges to awards, and you can actually see how agencies look at different laws and how they interpret them. So you can educate yourself with a lot of publicly available information, as well said. So try to get as much as you possibly can. And then lastly is join as many organizations as you can. If you're a business development professional, AFCEA, ACT-IAC, there's a whole NCMA. There are a whole bunch of different organizations that if you look up on Google, you can join these organizations. And right now they have a lot of virtual events, but they also are beginning to have in-person events where you can interact with colleagues that are also doing the same thing that you are to find out about new information and new opportunities that are out there.
Great, thanks, Joe. So there's looks like a tremendous amount of resources out there for individuals and for companies. So to distill that down a little bit, if someone says, well, it looks like by based on some of these RFPs and some of this information, I've got as a technology company, I've got something the government would 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 be interested in and could benefit them. What are the ways that they can break into this government market, which is seen to be, certainly a market with a lot of barriers and a lot of folks are a little bit wary of that.
Yeah, there are a lot of different ways, and for technology vendors, I'm going to segment them into two different categories. One is services, and the other is product. We'll start with product. So if you are a new technology product that's entering the marketplace, there is a lot of ways that you can get into this area. One way is direct. There is the General Services Administration, or also known as GSA. Um, uh, GSA schedules is you can create your own schedule for your products and sell directly to the federal government. A lot of OEMs are not interested in that because there's a lot of legalities that are involved in that, and there's complications that can sometimes arise with their commercial side of their business. So a lot of OEMs or original equipment manufacturers, they actually work with or government resellers to actually provide their products to the federal government. There are a multitude of these resellers. There are small business as well as large business resellers that have been around for over 20 years that have GSA schedules as well as other contracts or indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity IDIQ contracts that are specific to providing technology to the federal government. So if you are a product vendor, usually the best way to get in is to talk to some of these technology resellers, and then they will have the contracts that have a very quick way into the federal government. For services, there are multiple ways to do this as well. One is as a prime contractor. But with that, the bar is higher for you because you're going to have experience in the technology that you're providing. You will be in heavy competition with players that have done this many times before. So, what we usually recommend for somebody just entering the marketplace is to what we call subcontract, and that is to be a subcontractor to a prime contractor that might have a better competitive advantage on competing for some of these opportunities. And the reason being is that some of these opportunities might be larger than what this technology vendor might have the ability to provide. So it's outside of their scope or experience levels. So sometimes being a subcontractor providing a specific carved out piece of service is a better way to get the experience with the federal government and the agency that you're targeting at the beginning so that you can build up your experience for bidding on future contracts.
Right. And as you mentioned, there's some of these projects, some of these awards are really, really big, and there's multiple elements that go into them. So often even the big contractors don't do it all themselves, right? So you know,
Correct.
us, some of our clients and some of the technology companies out there, some of the one of the challenges is getting to know of those big contractors and getting to be known by them so that your expertise is known, so you can be part of that overall solution to the to the government. So, would you have any? I know you mentioned a couple of ways to get into the market, but any specific advice on working with the primes?
And this kind of comes back to an answer I had earlier on in terms of working with as many of the industry organizations as you possibly can. Being a part of these industry organizations opens you up to usually there's luncheons, breakfasts, and now with the last year and a half, a lot of online gatherings. Let's call it that, where people can interact with one another, and you're usually talking about a single topic, but when we were live and in person, we were all sitting at a random table, so you got to know as many people as you could at every breakfast that you went to or every dinner, and getting to know other potential primes that are out there. And the largest primes are the large contractors that you know of, the Northrops, the Lidos, and the ones that have been around for years. But then there's also a lot of opportunity in small business and what I would call a mid-tier business range, which would be in the 100 million to $300 million annual receipts. And those are a lot of companies that have experience, but they will also need subcontractors for some of the work that they're doing as well.
Very good. And another way we see companies coming together to bid in a contract is in the form of a joint venture where a separate legal entity is created and two parties join, and they can be of different sizes or magnitudes, but they bring with them an ability to um, bring a lot of value to their contract. And that particular venture is created just for that single contract purpose alone. So that's a way to um, really to formalize that relationship too.
In terms of the joint ventures, it is that is another tool in the tool shed for government contractors because there are some very specific advantages that come with um, being a joint venture. And in some cases, a joint venture is put together amongst all small businesses to coalesce and go after a large opportunity. In other cases, SBA has very specific rules around what they call a mentor protege joint venture, also known as sometimes an MPJV. Yet another acronym for us. And the mentor protege JV is approved by the Small Business Administration. And so you'll hear it sometimes referred to as the SBA approved MPJV. And what happens is that mentor can be a large business, but in the terms of the joint venture is still considered small, but has all the experience of both the mentor and the protege as a part of it. So that could be almost like a superpower on some of these bids to help you get more experience in some cases where you would not be able to from a large business as a subcontractor.
Right now, you mentioned experience, and one of the questions that comes up is, do companies have to have what they call the past experience with the federal government in order to get new work? So, do you mind touching on that?
Yes, one part of every bid, and I touched on request for proposals, but that's what we really at Red Team specialize in is going after requests for proposals, and that is the typical way that business is competed in the federal government, especially anything that's over $500,000 of substantial nature. Um, and in there, there is always instructions and evaluation criteria. Part of the instructions on almost every bid is something called past performance. And past performance is have you done this before? And in comparison to the scope of work that is being asked for. And a lot of times, new entries into this marketplace think, well, I haven't done work with the federal government, so I can't bid on this. In most cases, commercial experience is accepted. Sometimes federal experience will be more highly evaluated, but commercial experience is usually accepted in most cases. But that is if you are a prime contractor. Once again, sometimes you have the ability to add a subcontractor if you are the prime contractor or be a subcontractor to a prime contractor that has that experience. There's a lot of ways to answer that question. So you don't necessarily have to have experience with the federal government to be able to bid on a federal government contract. It sounds like a chicken and egg kind of conversation, but in reality, the answer is you can still answer this question in a lot of different ways.
Good. Thank you, Joe. That really takes us, to the end of our time today. And I know we've touched on a lot, and you brought up some terrific points. As I'm sure some people may have some additional questions. So, is there a way that they can follow up with you?
Sure. It's I can be reached at my email address, which is joe.salgado. It's spelled Salgado at redteamconsulting.com.
Terrific, Joe, and thanks again for your time today. Really appreciate that. And for everyone else, thank you for listening. And up next in our series, we'll discuss what you need to know now that you've won your first contract. So stay tuned for that. Thank you, everyone.